That's the BC weather. Now it's over to BC Almanac. Here's Mark Forsyth.
Thank you, Susan. From Langara Point to Point Atkinson, this is BC Almanac sounding off on CBC Radio 1. Seeing the light. This is what a Senate committee calls its report into staffing at Canada's light stations, and the senators say, halt the current de-staffing plans. We're going to hear some BC reaction and open the phones to you as well. Also today, fiddling with assay results. This is the allegation against a Salt Spring Island resident, and business journalist David Baines is watching. He'll talk to us. Coming up after 12:30, don't forget to open the flu. On this first day of winter, we ask about lessons learned the hard way, whether it's lighting that fire or traveling in our winter wonderland. And we'll get some wilderness cooking tips from a woman who lives off the grid. Think stone oven. That's in the last half of our show. Canadian Coast Guard should stop its plans to destaff lighthouses. This is one of the key recommendations in a Senate committee report released today. It held public hearings in Ottawa on the east and west coast earlier this year. We're wondering how you feel about today's recommendation to keep current staff in place at many of BC's light stations. We have 27 lights that are staffed. What difference do light keepers actually make to your own life? We'd love to hear from you if you're a mariner in particular. Please phone us at 604-669-3733. Toll free 1-800-825-5950. On the cell, star or pound 690. And with me right now is Jim Abram. He is a director with the Strathcona Regional District. He's also founder and former president of the Lightkeepers Union. He was a lightkeeper for 25 years. And welcome to BC Almanac.
Thank you very much, Mark. Nice to be here.
Is that a lighthouse-sized smile I see on your face today?
Yeah, it's one of the few days that I've been smiling for quite some time here. I've been fighting this for 14 months, and we had a just wonderful morning this morning with the report being released by the Senate. It was a great report. 14 months,
but actually this is about the fourth go-around for you, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, this is 14 months out of 25 years.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the fourth go-around, and it's been probably one of the shortest so far.
Break it down for us, the key recommendations in this Senate report.
Well, I think the recommendations, I think there were about 6 of them. I don't have them in front of me here, but certainly the ones that I recall, keep staff. That was probably the biggest one.
Yes.
And for all of the reasons that people told them, I guess the thing that really stands out for me is that the senators went to a lot of trouble to travel around the country, to both coasts, to the Atlantic provinces, to have hearings in Ottawa, and they heard many, many, many representations from every type of user that you can possibly imagine, and basically came up with what those people said. That's what they presented, and this is so unusual. You know, we don't usually hear that in government speak, but these folks did not speak government speak. They spoke plain English, and they came out and they said what they heard and what they felt and what needed to be said. So I'm extremely pleased with that part. And I think the other part that sort of stands out is that a cost-benefit analysis be done. And, Coast Guard never has had the cost of running staffed light stations. If they do give you a number, they'll give you a different one the next day. And they don't have the cost for running a de-staffed light station. So how can you possibly know what the savings are?
And I think that also goes to the heart of the role of lightkeepers, that it's broader than many of us think. It goes beyond staffing it and sending in weather reports. Would that be part of this cost-benefit analysis?
Absolutely. And that's something that really does need to be looked at, and it also needs to be looked at as to who should share in that cost. Now, déjà vu, 1987, after we won the battle between 85 and 87, there was a report commissioned by the Coast Guard called The Future Role of Light Stations. And golly gee, at the end of that report, it told us that there were about a dozen agencies that benefited from the use of light stations and the information gathered by light stations, and that those agencies needed to pay. So, this has already been done. It's already been told to the Coast Guard, but the Coast Guard never implemented any of those recommendations. So.
We'd like to hear from our listeners on this, too. And last time we did speak about this with the current president of the Lightkeepers Union. The vast majority of calls were supporting staffing the light stations, keeping it that way. But after the broadcast, we also received a letter from a sailor who had relied on BC light stations all of his life sailing up and down the BC coast. He said he went and sailed in Europe, where there are no longer staffed light stations, and said, it changed my mind that the technology is there. You can be safe in these waters because there is good current information. How is it that many parts of the world do not have staffed light stations, and it's not a problem for them?
Well, how is it that the country of India, the government of India just put out a press release a few days ago that they are keeping 50 light stations staffed all the way around the coast of India for numerous reasons, just like we have here in BC, numerous reasons, including the sovereignty of the nation, the safety of the nation, security of the nation. And those staff are providing a multitude of services that may or may not be sailboat related. I don't know. But maybe somebody, got lucky and sailed the coast of Europe and didn't have any problems. There are many times people out here don't get lucky. They lose their electronics, they lose their global positioning devices, etc., and they depend on somebody to talk to at a light station.
Jim Abram is my guest, director with the Strathcona Regional District. Of course, many of the people who live on that part of Vancouver Island and Quadra Island, that area, would rely on light stations. He's also a founder and former president of the Lightkeepers Union. We're asking for our listeners' reaction to this report from the Senate today. Quarter after, let's go to Ian, calling us from Prince Rupert. Please go ahead, Ian.
Thank you very much. What I don't understand is why we want to close these things. I have sailed from here to South America and back. In Mexico, there's no lighthouses. Lighthouses are the first sentinel of the coast, and you can't replace the human observer. And for the money spent, it is cheap. It is good coverage. On top of that, let's do more on lighthouses. Why don't we take water samples, et cetera, and do more as opposed to less? This automation thing is from people from Ottawa who really have never lived on the coast.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure Jim is nodding in agreement here.
Can't disagree with a word you said, and lightkeepers have been willing ever since day one to do more and more and more for no further pay. It's just a matter of making efficient use and enhancing the service. And all the government has to do is say yes. The Coast Guard has to say yes.
1-800-825-5950 is our toll-free number to reach us here at BC Almanac, 604-669-3733. Let's go to another coastal community. Dorothy at Masset. What do you think of what the Senate is saying? Don't destaff, Dorothy.
I'm really happy the light stations are going to be staffed. I worked on the lights about over 25 years ago through the Prince Rupert Coast Guard, and we had two stations. One of them was really vital. It was down off of Fitzhugh Sound with Queen Charlotte Sound as the main body of water that was really dangerous to be crossing, and we watched people die. We had huge storms. We had all kinds of situations happen. We saved people. We saved people up at Boat Bluff by Clem 2 when nobody else could hear them. And I honestly feel that even though it's 25 or so years later, it's vital that people are out there because there's even less communities, less resources at communities. There's not as many fish boats to be going out. And if the North had gone down where there was no other people besides the Hartley Bay people, at least there might have been somebody on one of the Coast Guards to hear, or with the Coast Guard radio hearing it was great. Anyways, when we travel the coast, I'm always telling all of our international visitors that as we're passing a lighthouse, I tell them that proudly that they're Canadian Coast Guard employees and that they're representing the Coast Guard, and that they're there to save people's lives.
Dorothy, thank you. And I'll just ask Jim if it is still the case that people the 27 stations that we still have manned, are people still saving lives, as Dorothy described it?
Absolutely. The only thing that has changed is that the amount of traffic has increased, and the amount of incidents have increased, and the need for weather reporting has increased, and the economy of the coast, including things like the logging industry and the tourism industry up in the inlets and that sort of thing, they depend on knowing what the weather's doing in those areas, and the only way they can get it is from a staffed light station.
How many light stations had their staff taken away in the most recent round?
When I started in 1978, there were 41 light stations, and they're down to 27 now. And what the user community has told us is that they are now at the absolute bare bones minimum in the way of spacing between light stations to be able to provide that safety net that they need. They need to have that many light stations. If they have any less, there's going to be huge gaps, and they can't have that. We
have to let you go so you can talk to Chuck Strahl, who's the Minister of Transportation, Infrastructure and Communities. What's your message to him about that? Do you want these lights that were destaffed to have people back on them, or what?
Well, I think my message to Minister Strahl is going to be more along the lines of I hope he's happy with the report, and that I hope that his BC caucus is happy with the report, and that his BC caucus will support Minister Gail Shea in making the right decision to keep staff on light stations.
Keep it there for now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Mark.
Jim Abram, Director with the Strathcona Regional District. He's also founder, former president. The Lightkeepers Union, was a BC Lightkeeper himself for 25 years. If you didn't get a chance to make your point, you can send us an email directly, almanac@cbc.ca.